certainly have today's comments down with that much practice. As an officer of Rotary International, he is one of only 535 governors throughout the Rotary world and carries the distinctive recognition as this club's 16th elected governor throughout our 102-year history. Governor Will is here today with his gracious wife, Sally, to whom he's been married for some 36 years. You know, before he met her, he wouldn't date any girl that had to be home by 11 p.m. Though both hail from Muskogee, they first met during his junior year at OSU, where he was interfraternity council president, and indeed the face of the university, while carrying a pistol and a mascot's name, Pete. He later received his graduate degree from Southern Methodist University's Cox Graduate School of Banking. Our governor was introduced to Rotary at age 7 when his grandfather took him to a weekly luncheon in Falls Valley. Years later, he was elected president of the Muskogee Rotary Club while serving as vice president of Commercial Bank and Trust Company there. He also served as chairman of the Muskogee Planning Commission, the Park Board, and its iconic Azalea Festival. He also served as chairman of the Oklahoma Development Finance Authority. Now, some 24 years ago, after relocating his business interests in Oklahoma City, Governor Will was sponsored for Club 29 membership by his cousin and former club president and district governor, Bob Looney. He's currently the principal owner and managing agent of the Beckman Company, one of the state's largest privately owned independent insurance agencies, where he has enjoyed national acclaim as one of the nation's most successful insurance professionals. Our governor has been very active with leadership roles in Club 29's activities and programs, sports a perfect attendance record for the past 3 years, is a major donor to the Rotary Foundation, and is a club community fellow. Through the first week of the administration, commencing in July, he joined our Bob Medley and other club members traveling to Istanbul and Bulgaria to participate in some of our many humanitarian projects. Most all of you know Will, and if you know Will well, you realize he's lightning in a bottle. He thrives at full speed. He is a Renaissance man, a true man of all seasons. And in the chase of life, it seems to me that he misses very few steps. He's a master gardener, a world traveler, an avid skier. He's habitually generous with his time and loves to barbecue for his friends and family. Will exhibits a profound enthusiasm for the historical grounding of Rotary, combined with the power of 1.25 million members nationwide, making the improbable always possible. He finds here an unmatched vision of making the world a better place, and he revels in its commitment to pursue world peace and to foster encouragement and support for the underprivileged, the undereducated, and the underserved. As governor, he can carry the Rotary banner to ever broader and higher levels of service to a needy world, while realizing that our challenges will never be finished. And we are not there yet, and we never will be. Maybe that's part of the magical appeal of Rotary. Our challenges have no end. Maybe, just maybe, that's why this club has continued to grow and thrive, as it continues to expand its mission of changing lives at home and abroad, while cultivating enduring friendships for ourselves every week. Governor Will's interest in the district began perhaps 7 years ago when he played an invaluable role in Rotary's Centennial District Conference, most importantly in preparing the main meat course for hundreds of district Rotarians and guests and what would become an annual pre-district conference outdoor party on the grounds of the historic home of past Governor Jerry and Carlene Berger. He served the past 3 years as an assistant district governor and has completed rigorous training both at the zone and international levels where all governors-elect of every district worldwide study together for a full week, usually in January of the year before they take office. He's indeed earned his place at the table. He was ready for the leadership challenges and was already making his mark in the district. In so doing, he brings honor and recognition to this club. Please welcome home District Governor Will Beckman.
I didn't know what he was going to say.
I didn't either.
Yeah. You know, I want to say first off, it's an honor to be here today. I want to thank, being here on my 39th visit, the 38th visit, it's really reflective. And I want to thank our past district governors, Steve Garrett, Paige Dobson, Jerry Berger, and Billy Bowden, for their service to this district and to our club, because I know some of what you went through, and I want to thank you for all the efforts that you've given to Rotary and your life that you've given to Rotary, and it makes my heart feel good that I know other people and that are in this club that have done that. Billy, he always jokes that he didn't tell me the whole story about being governor. And you all have heard this about my outfit. It's picked out by the president of Rotary International, and my tie the same. But there are a lot more things you don't know until you serve in this position. And it's been an honor. I want to remind everybody again that World Polio Day is tomorrow. And we've so far spent $1.6 billion in the eradication of polio. It's down really to 3 countries in the world. And we're making a lot of headway. We've met with the Gates Foundation, and they're very active with Rotary now, by the way. And eventually, if they keep their process and their fundraising, they will eradicate it. For the most part, Pakistan and Afghanistan are down, and really there's only one African country that still has some spots of polio rising and going back down, but that's good. It was mentioned that I started going to Rotary at a young age. I wanted my mother here because I used to go with her father, my grandfather, to Rotary. He was one of the founding members of the Pauls Valley Rotary Club, Roy Ambrister, and we met at the Field Steakhouse. I don't know if you all remember Field Steakhouse down in Pauls Valley, but that's where we met. And it was really a great time for a kid to go. I have some great memories of Rotary, believe it or not. And the best thing, nice gentlemen, and if you were quiet and you listened and you ate all your food, they had a little treasure chest by the door at Field's Steakhouse, and you could go if you behaved yourself. It was great for my parents too. If you behaved yourself, you could go as you were walking out and open the treasure chest and take some candy out of it. And I said, I've never seen a restaurant to this day other than Fields that did that, but it sure was a good deal. And here I am, 50 years later, still remembering that from those days. President Tanaka, this year's theme is Peace Through Service. We hear the word peace every day. We hear it in the news. We use it in conversation. We talk about it a great deal in Rotary. But most of us spend very little time thinking of what peace is and what the words mean. The truth is, peace means different things to different people. No definition is right, and no definition is wrong. However, we use the word, and this is what peace means to us. No matter how we use it and understand it, the word peace, Rotary can always help us achieve it. I want to also mention to the club that I started going here in 1987 in this club. I got to see Shirley Kirshner inducted as the first lady into our Rotary Club, with Burns Hargis as the president. And it was a great time, and now you look in the audience, and that's one of the best things about Rotary we always talk about is membership. Women are a great deal to Rotary, and I always tell people if you want to get things done, get a lot of them in Rotary. Our district is still, we're about 36% women now, and we still have some clubs that hardly had any. But I want to thank you for all your efforts, and keep up the good work, because that's the future of Rotary, men and women throughout the world. I want to also bring up some dates. We have our district foundation, District Rotary Foundation date is February the 8th. All those Rotarians that are foundation members, it'll be held in Norman. President Tanaka will be the speaker. This year's theme, of course, is Peace Through Service, President Tanaka's theme. He will be there speaking. He also, I like President Tanaka because he likes the Western ways. And also, he's a Japanese businessman, and he's learned to speak pretty well. He stands about this high with his boots and cowboy hat on, and he's quite the fellow, but he's a very generous person, and has made a great president for Rotary International. The next thing I want to mention is Ed Porter is chairman of this year's district conference. Ed, thank you. And this will be held on May the 2nd. It begins at Jerry Berger's house on Thursday, May the 2nd at his house. We will have the annual barbecue, pulled pork, brisket, smoked salmon, and all the fixings. And like Paige said, he's the one that got me into this. So but it's a lot of fun. And you see 300 or 400 people at that deal on Thursday night. And then the district conference this year, we've changed up the schedule. This year's schedule, we've changed it to a day and a half instead of 2.5 days. And so on May the 3rd, which is a Friday, we will end the conference. We will have an all-club luncheon that day. And so at the Skirvin this year instead of the Sheridan. And so we want to invite everybody to come to that also, so mark it on your calendars. This year's international conference is in Lisbon, Portugal. I don't know how many people in this room have been to Lisbon, but Lisbon is a great city. It's Portugal has always been neutral during the wars, which I didn't know until the first time I was in Portugal. Like Switzerland, during World War I, World War II, the ships would come into harbor and replenish, and then go back out. You'd have English ships come in, then you'd have German ships come in. Because they were neutral, they were allowed to do that. And it's very unusual, but it's a great place to visit. I always tell people that's the cheapest place to go in Europe. It's kind of like the Mexico, only it's safe. And it is. And a lot of European people go there because you can always get deals, and it's safe and it's nice, and a lot of history there. And it's a great place to go. And all of us have ties to Portugal, whether you know it or not. If you drink wine, your cork has about a 98% chance of coming from Portugal, because the cork trees are all in Portugal, and when you're there, you're seeing peeling the bark, and that's what your cork in the wine bottles comes from, is Portugal for the most part. I want to also talk about membership. You know, I look around this room and I see people that are my friends primarily because of Rotary. There's a lot of people that I would have known other than Rotary. But for the most part, I have to tell you that most of the people that I've really gotten to know are because of Rotary. I have friends in this room that I've traveled with to 6 continents. And that's amazing. That's just, and a lot of those are, we've gone to trips we've gone on Rotary trips throughout the world, and we've done private trips throughout the world. But a lot of that has to do with Rotary. I always like to tell the story about, I sponsored a person by the name of Mike Turpin years ago, and Mike at that time had just lost in the governor's race and lost to Burns Hardis. And it's because of him coming here that actually up until that point they weren't real good friends because they were opponents. And coming to Rotary, they started talking. And then they started getting up here and doing some fun things, and we know that as Flashpoint. And this is where it began, because of Rotary. It was because of the friendship in Rotary that when you watch Flashpoint, every time I watch that, I think of those days because originally there was no love lost for two candidates of the opposite party, by the way. And Mike can be a little windy. He was my sergeant at arms, by the way, in Muskogee. But his heart is always in the right place. And he's a true Rotarian also. Also have to remind myself, you talk about Ray Ackerman. Very few of us would have known Ray outside of this. I mean, we might have known him through the chamber, but really you got to know him in Rotary. And when Ray became president of this club, I remember him joking. He said, you know, this is one of the most fun things I've ever done because I'm really getting to talk to people on a different level. It's kind of like my good friend Hardy Summers, who I also sponsored into this club, always talked about Rotary as his avenue outside the church and the legal community. So when you're looking for members, I always tell people to look for friends that you want to give a gift to. And giving the gift of Rotary is one of the nicest things you can give. I remember, I guess it was a month and a half ago when we did some Paul Harris presentation, and Dennis Shockley came up to me, and I hadn't even thought about it, and he was getting a Paul Harris level 3, or level 2, take that back. And he came up and he said, well, I want to thank you for my membership in the Rotary. It's been one of the most memorable things that I've been given in Oklahoma City, my Oklahoma City residency. With that being mentioned, I want to call up to the podium Gary Zabrowski. Gary, you can, Sally? Yeah. We want to present you a Paul Harris Fellow, Level 2. In 1917, President Arch Crump proposed an endowment be set up for the purpose of doing good in the world. In 1928, it was renamed the Rotary Foundation and became a distinct entity within Rotary International. In 1947, gifts made of $1,000 or more were named in honor of Rotary's founder, Paul Harris. Through this time, support of the foundation has grown tremendously. Since the first donation in 1917, it has received contributions totaling several $billions. A Paul Harris Fellow is a distinction shared by men and women of more than 200 nations, many of whom have made significant contributions to the world of peace and understanding. A Paul Harris Fellow receives a special certificate and a gold pin. It is with great honor that we recognize you for your contribution to the world's premier service and humanitarian organization, Rotary International. Thank you, Gary. I want to mention a couple things. I don't know if Bob Medley is here, but I want to thank some people. Bob Medley has taken on the matching grants this year. Bob Hammock, thank you for doing all the work you've done on your videos. Mary Jane, thank you for your trips that you've gone with us and the work you've done. I can't sit here and thank enough people because there's so many giving people. I want to encourage people to give to the Rotary Foundation. I tell the story about myself. I use myself as an example. I gave $40 to the Rotary Foundation my first 10 years. And I'm not real proud of that, but it's reality because I was a good Rotarian. I just wasn't a good Rotary International Rotarian because we weren't giving money to the foundation. And I gave $40, but we did local projects in Muskogee. We had a great club in Muskogee. We did a lot of things in Muskogee, but we weren't using Rotary International as part of our tools. And it wasn't until later that we had the matching grants drive in this club where you have a fundraiser matching 2 for 1, give $500 and get your first Paul Harris Fellow. That a person stepped up, and we have had that drive several times since, but actually I have a transfer into my records of General Bowden, Billy Bowden, into my record of 500 points when I gave $500. And that's one of the nicest things that got me on the path of realizing what Rotary was all about. It's an international organization. I want to encourage everybody when you travel to go to international locations if you can for one meeting. I always tell people to go one time at least when you're on vacation. wherever you are, because you're seeing the same type of people that are in this room everywhere in the world. You'll see the leaders, the mayors, the chief of the police, the hospital administrator, everybody will be there. And as I travel, like we will go down to Cabo, or we'll go, and when I go to that club, I've got the police chief, the mayor, and all the people that will sit there and tell me what's going on in the community, so I can go out and do. If you do the same thing in Europe, it's amazing. You find the same things. But give the gift of Rotary to friends, and also give to the Rotary Foundation. We're every Rotarian every year club, $100 a year. If you ever think of about other things to get to, I'll tell you that there's no better organization than Rotary International. I want to talk about making a difference. Thelma Eubanks Johnson was an educator in Muskogee, Oklahoma. Thelma Eubanks Johnson was a reading teacher, and she had just begun her teaching career, and she got some students that needed extra care. This particular year was the 7th grade year of a young man, and he went into her class with reading at a 4th grade level. This man had tests. His parents had him tested because they thought he might have some handicap, and he tested out that he had a high IQ, but he needed a little special care. He also had a speech impediment, and they put him in outside speech lessons. In addition, they enrolled him in speech class in the school. And so he would read a story one-on-one, Thelma Eubanks Johnson with this young man, and they'd read a story and then take a test. Then they'd read a story and take a test and wait a day. And then they'd read a story, then take a test, wait a couple of days. And then read a story, take a test a few days later. This happened all throughout the 7th grade year, every day, 1 hour a day, 5 days a week. By the end of the 7th grade year, Thelma Eubanks Johnson was testing this young man, and he was reading a story and taking a test 3 weeks later, and then 4 weeks later. Every day he's reading a different story. At the end of his 7th grade year, he was at a junior level in college. By his 8th grade year, he was debating, and when he graduated from high school, he was the outstanding debater on a state championship squad. Thelma Eubanks Johnson later went on to be the principal of one of the high schools in Muskogee, Oklahoma. Thelma Eubanks Johnson, that was in 1964 that she was the reading teacher in the Muskogee schools. In 1984, she was the principal. In 1984, Thelma Eubanks Johnson introduced me as the speaker at the Muskogee High School graduation. And then she went on to introduce me as her best student. I tell that story because I was that kid. I was that student that one person took time out of their life and spent extra time with me to where I would be able to elevate and be able to make a difference myself. I use Rotary as one of my tools, and my main tool now, to give back to others, because I will promise you, through Rotary and using the Rotary and the Rotary Foundation and this club, that you can make a difference, one person at a time. Every person can make a major difference to everything they put their heart into. So my challenge is, go with your passion and give from your heart to others and enjoy all that Rotary has to offer, because I do. Thank you.